Dahlberg.
And what was your crew position?
Pardon?
Crew position?
I was a flight engineer, top turret gunner, B-17.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
Tell me, Dave, about how it was you came to become a flight engineer.
Well, actually, I went in the Air Force to be a glider pilot, but at the time they had more glider pilots than they needed, and so they sent me to gunnery school. And after going to gunnery school, they sent me to radio school. After I graduated from that, they sent me to AM school to be a flight engineer. I guess they thought I needed a lot of tuning up because they sent me a lot of places. But I was a flight engineer, top turret gunner with the 487th Bomb Group, the 837th Squadron. And we were based in Lavenham, England, Station 137. And we were flying across the continent. I completed 35 missions. And without being injured or killed or captured, you feel like you almost have to apologize for being a survivor. But our crew, we had 9 members of our crew. We didn't have a bombardier, we had a toggler gunner. At that stage of the war, they toggled out the bombs. The lead ship would drop a flare, and everybody would drop on that flare when they got to that point. And so they had 3-4 different bombardiers, but that was it. The rest of them were just gunners, and they would drop when they reached that point. And I went to all the major targets in Europe, including Berlin a couple of times. And at any major target like Schweinfurt or Berlin, we would lose 60 planes in a single day. And that's 600 guys who were trained. And so we lost 69,000. I should say 29,000 flyers were killed. And we had 30,000 in German prison camps. And the flight engineer's job today is, he's the 3rd pilot in aircraft. All the flight engineers now are pilots. And they move from flight engineer to co-pilot to pilot. And at the time, our job was to take care of all the mechanical things that we could and to help the pilot. The pilot is in charge of the aircraft, and if he asks you for some help, if you need to transfer fuel, or you need to check to see that the wheels are locked down, or any minute thing like that. And also you're supposed to keep track of the gauges, check to see that you got hydraulic pressure when you need it, and keep track of everything like that. And so the flight engineer is always right behind the pilot and co-pilot. And the Germans attacked directly from the front. And I flew my first mission on December 24th, 1944. And General Castle was in our lead ship, and he was shot down and killed. And from our squadron, from our group, we lost 7 B-17s that day. And there was a total of 13 planes. The other planes that went down were fighters, German and American fighters. And this was over Belgium. And that was my first mission. And it was probably the worst mission that, it was certainly the worst mission that our group flew. And we flew 22 missions in Piccadilly Lily. And when we went on FAC leave, 2 missions later, it was shot down. So when we came back, we flew the remaining missions in the Queen of Hearts. And 2 missions after we flew that, it was shot down. So it's just a fate didn't have it. We managed to survive. And probably the toughest single thing that I did was when we come off of Berlin one time, the bomb bay doors were open, and we dropped our bombs and came off, and they couldn't close the bomb bay doors, or it froze open. And so it meant that I had to take off my oxygen mask, take off the communications, and take an oxygen bottle and go off the oxygen and take an oxygen bottle, carry an oxygen bottle, and walk back in the bomb bay, which is 6 inches wide. And we were at 30,000 feet, and cranked the bomb bay doors closed. And so the radio operator, he opened the door to the radio room and said, well, he would watch to see what happened to me, because if I fell out, they'd want to know. But because I didn't have a parachute on, because to walk through like that and carry an oxygen bottle and so forth, you couldn't carry a parachute too. So stand out there and hold the oxygen bottle with one hand and crank with one hand and try to keep from falling out. And so crank the bomb bay doors open because of the drag when you come off. Normally when you come off the target, they drop 5,000 feet. And it's usually try to pick up a tailwind at the same time. And so this gives you speed to get out of the target area, because all the time you're in there, they're shooting at you. And in fact, any place in Germany, once you hit the coast, they start shooting at you. And generally, when we left England, we would form at 12,000 feet. And we would get all the bombers in formation according to groups and squadrons. And then we'd start across the channel. And the minute you hit Germany, they'd start to shoot at you. But we would try, like if we were going to Berlin, we would make a bomb run on Hamburg. And by the time they found out we weren't bombing Hamburg, we were almost to Berlin. And so that would be kind of the course. But then you have to come back out of Germany all the way across Germany. And sometimes we actually, from Berlin, we would go the southern route and come way down by Switzerland and come back that way. So depending on the amount of gasoline that you could have and the amount of fuel would determine how far you could go. And so we were just plain lucky, that's all. And most all the crews are skilled, and to say that they were shot down because of some fault of theirs is really wrong. And I'm one very unhappy person about the POW, about the prisoners of war, and about the guys that were killed. And the guys that were killed, the government does nothing for them, and when you're killed, you're dead. And so that ends it. And so the people don't know what happened to all these guys. You go here and you interview these people. You ask them to name 10 guys that were killed. They can't name one guy that was killed. They don't know. Crews were shot down, and they know that the crew was shot down, but they don't know what happened to them in most cases. And so there's nothing done for the people that were killed. And I've been after the Air Force to do some kind of a thing, and I tell them time and time again, the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., you wouldn't have one person go to look at it if it weren't for the names. That's what they go there to see. And so our 29,000 flyers who were killed, somebody should do something to commemorate their service. But once you're dead, nobody does anything for you. And the same thing is true with the POWs. When they went to prison camp, their rank was froze. Whatever rank they were, that was it. And so nothing was done for them during the time they were incarcerated. And as far as getting medals and that, they didn't get any medals for that time, nothing, you know. So they get a prisoner of war medal at the end, but that's it. And so the flight engineer today is still active. Their radio operators and gunners are discontinued now. They don't have either one of those categories anymore. But the flight engineers are still in business. And when I came back, a lot of, they wanted to send a lot of them to B-29s, but I had enough of the war and I was not interested in going to the Pacific. So my job was, I was sent eventually to Langley Field in Virginia and a navigator's school, and I would have to go out and gas up the airplane in the morning and get it ready, and then go up and fly about 10 hours with the navigators and come down. I had to do that each day, and that got kind of old. But the war soon ended in Japan, and because of combat and everything, I had enough points to get out. But that's about the complete story of what happened.
Let me ask you this real quick. Tell me about what happened when General Castle went down. Wasn't he a very popular general? You'd said that you were flying the day that General Castle was shot down. Were you flying the day General Castle was shot down?
Yeah.
Tell me, wasn't he a very popular leader?
Yeah, he was. He was an older guy, you know, a West Point guy. You see, when the Air Force, when they started to mobilize the Air Corps, they said, well, we'll need pilots, you know. They said, where are we going to get the pilots? So he said, well, you know, we'll take all the officers from the academies and we'll train them, West Point, Annapolis, and we'll train them to be flyers, you know. Well, that wasn't a drop in the bucket. We trained 97,000 flyers, pilots in World War II. And so that was only a drop in the bucket. So they soon figured out they had to do something else in order to, so they started the cadet program. And that was reached out to college students primarily. And but that soon ran out of steam too. There just wasn't enough candidates, and so then they opened it up to other groups and changed the qualifications around and so forth. And there were like 300,000 gunners trained, you know, and there was like 100,000 bombardiers and navigators trained too.
Tell me about how complex was the B-17? There were people,
Huh?
when the B-17 was first built, there were people who said that it was too complex.
No, it was. The B-17 is really a natural flying airplane. And I can say that because I was a flight engineer on 24s before I was on B-17s. And the B-24 is more hydraulic, and B-17 is more electrical. And, but it's a natural flying airplane. When the B-17 flies, if you don't land, you don't hold it down on the ground, it'll take off again. But the B-24 lands like a rock, bang, and then it's down, and that's it. And so that's the difference. The difference is kind of like a P-51 Mustang and a P-47 Thunderbolt. The Mustang is much easier to fly, a much more natural airplane. And the Thunderbird is a heavy, bulky type airplane, and that's kind of like the 24 and the 17. 24s are faster, carry a bigger bomb load, but they can't get as high. They get up to about 23,000 feet, and they're just like this. And but the B-17, we could go right along at 30,000 feet without a problem. And when you're up high, the safety in getting out is to have time to get out. If you're close to the ground, and you don't have much chance of surviving. You know, you can't get out in time, and if you do get out, you know, by the time your chute opens, and you know, it's a kind of a death thing. But
tell me how rugged and durable the B-17 was.
How rugged?
And how survivable.
Well, you would come back from a mission, sometimes there were holes big enough to walk through. From an 88 or 105 or cannons, and sometimes the whole tail section was shot off, or the nose section, and they would still land. And some of them landed without a pilot. In some cases, even a flight engineer landed the airplane, because both the pilot and co-pilot were dead. Now, the Lancaster, the British plane, they only have one pilot. They don't have a co-pilot at all. But in our case, we have two, pilot and co-pilot. So, and actually, they're both just as qualified. The thing is, I don't know where they got the nomenclature, but the pilot, of course, is the leader, and he has a responsibility for the aircraft and the crew. And so his decision is ultimate decision. Now, most of the pilots were not like cavalry officers or infantry officers. If there was a problem, and they would usually ask the crew what they wanted to do. They want to bail out, or they want to try to make it back, or what they do, and they'd usually say what they wanted to do. And so the pilots were kind of open compared to infantry officers, and the crew was pretty much to themselves. And we knew different crews, but we had very little to do with each other, and mainly because of the fact that the next day the guy might be shot down, and you don't want to know him too well. And so you say hello and you think, but you stay pretty much as a group. And that way, when somebody is killed or thing, it really doesn't affect you as much, because you don't know about it. You hear about it when you get back, that they were shot down or this or that. And when we got over to England, we were assigned a barracks which had 3 crews in. Now, an enlisted crews, we had six enlisted men in the barracks, so there was 18 guys in each barracks. When we come in, the one crew was shot down, and they were prisoners of war, and the other crew was killed, and then we had there was 2 guys in the barracks, sir. There was only 2 guys left from another crew. One guy had a broken leg, and one guy wasn't hurt at all. He had to finish his missions, but the pilot had been killed, and the co-pilot went crazy. He was in a nut house, and that's kind of a welcome we got to a barracks in England. So.
What was morale like when you saw those kinds of things?
Well, I would say morale was fairly high. With for one thing, everybody was young, and nobody knew about the losses. They didn't know how many people we lost, you know, and you know, you hear about how many people they lost in a war right now. Well, hell, we'd lose more than that in one day, you know, and they think that's something, you lose them in a year, you know. Well, it's nothing, a drop in the bucket, you know. And so for the guys who are dying, of course, it's too bad, but there isn't a great deal of men compared to what World War II was like. In training, we lost 15,000 guys in training for the war. So you get some idea that training wasn't the safest thing. The airplanes were new, and every time you got in a B-17, it had a different letter on it, A, B, C, D, and I flew in G, and every airplane was different, and so it's like buying a new car. You know, if you get the new car, the first ones that come off the assembly line, there's always a few bugs in it, you know. And the same thing with airplanes. There was always bugs in them, and a few things went wrong when they first come off the thing. And by the time they reached the next step, well, then they were a different one again, and another different letter, and a different airplane, different problems. And but it was a time when we ruled the skies over Germany, and as a result of what we did, you know, we rule the skies all over the world today. You know, as a result of the 8th Air Force, and the 8th Air Force is active today. All the stealth bombers, all the B-52s, they're 8th Air Force. And when we were in the Air Force, it was not the Air Force, it was the Army Air Corps. And so the Air Force was initiated in 1947, but the 8th Air Force has managed to survive that whole period. And today, those people flying those missions still represent the 8th Air Force, and they still represent the best of our country. And I think you know, basically, all the guys in the 8th Air Force represented the best in their country. They were all volunteers, and you couldn't belong unless you were a volunteer. They had the best physical. You had to have good eyes and ears, and you had to be in good health, so they were not only the best physically and mentally, but all the way around. And they were also the youngest, probably, you know.
Let me ask you another question. Did you ever see any mid-air collisions?
Pardon?
Did you ever see any mid-air collisions?
Yeah, there there was a number of airplane collisions when we were there. And it's something that is almost impossible to prevent because airplanes are flying close together. When you're in this country, they tell you don't go near that other airplane. Stay away from him. Or when you get over in combat, the first thing they tell you is stick your wing in that guy's window. They want you up close, boxed up like this, 1, 2, and 3, and they want you to fly close formation. The idea there is to get the maximum firepower. When the fighters come in, you can bring about 70 guns on a fighter, see, by being boxed up close. And so when you're in a final formation there, you can't move out of formation, especially on the bomb run. And on the bomb run, generally, you don't have to worry too much about fighters because of the flak. There's so much flak around there that the fighters stay off until you're out of the bomb run. And they either get you before the bomb run and again after the bomb run, but during the bomb run, the fighters are absent because of all the flak going up. And they would end up getting killed themselves with the flak. And but the 8th Air Force played an important part, and our contribution will last forever.
Tell me what was going through your mind when you would see a B-17 spinning out of control or exploding, or did you ever witness any planes going down?
Our job, probably what a lot of people don't realize is actually the Air Force was an intelligence tool. We provided all the information, everything that moved on the ground in Germany. We marked everything down that was there. Now, if you saw something, one day we were flying across Germany and I saw a big swastika on the ground. There was nothing around there except this big swastika on the ground. And so I called that out to the co-pilot, or to the navigator, and the navigator marks it on the map. And as soon as you get back, the first thing you do, they don't let you eat or anything. You've been gone for 10, 12 hours, and you haven't eaten or anything. The first thing you do is first thing they give you a double shot of cognac. You sign your name for it. And then you can get coffee and a sandwich there and wait for your turn to be debriefed. And during debriefing, they ask each crew member and the pilot, and they go over the whole mission with each member of the crew. And where flyers were shot down or something, they want to know how many parachutes you saw, how many that you got, or you didn't see any, whatever the information is, all that information is compiled. And so you get it from this crew and that crew and that crew, and all of them are in different places. So when they get all the information together, that gives them the general focus on the thing. And so that's about it for flight engineer and my experience in the war. My pilot says I was a cheerleader, but I believe that we were a good crew, and you have to think positively if you're going to come through the war. If you're a negative thinker, it's a tough it's a tough call.
Tell me about did you ever shoot at any?
Huh?
Did you ever shoot at any Germans, any FW-190s or jets, or did you ever have a chance to shoot?
What?
Did you ever have a chance to shoot at the enemy?
No. Well, yeah, I shot at fighters, yeah. But
tell me about that. Tell me their tactics.
Well, German fighters come straight in at you, right for the. They usually come in like this, and they come out of the sun, and the purpose of that is so that you can't see them. When you're looking into the sun, you can't see the fighters because they're right against the sun. So they come in from the top, and they come and they go out through the bottom, and they go straight at the airplane against the pilot and co-pilot and navigator and bombardier, and of course flight engineers right behind the pilot and co-pilot, and so they come straight in at you. And actually, the ball turret gunner has the lowest visibility because he can't see. He can't see them as they come in. He has to shoot at them as they go out the back. And so he does not have a very good chance at it getting shot. Top turret gunner does, and nose gunner, and waist gunners, but ball turret gunner and tail gunner, usually they don't attack from the tail. On rare occasions they have, but generally they don't. Generally, the Germans believe in straight frontal attack, and that's where the command of the airplane is. And they come in, and if they've got a cannon, they fire the cannon right through the formation, and that's the thing. Also, we were there during the time that they launched the first jets, and when the first jets first came out, the 262s, they would just dive through the formation. They wouldn't even fire at you. They only could stay up for about 5 or 10 minutes. That's all they could stay up in the air. And so they'd come through, and but everybody was firing at everything because they never seen anything that fast before. And then as they improved their technology, they would come in and fire a cannon at the formation, same as regular aircraft. And but the P-51s could get inside of them, and they could shoot them down if they could get a chance at them. So that was a thing. And the buzz bombs came right over our base. We were about 60 miles north of London, and they were fired across the channel, and they would come right over our base, and they would make the stove lids bounce up and down, you know. And if you heard the engine stop on the buzz bomb, better get out of the way because they're going to hit the ground. And but they would come, and you could hear the engines come right over the base. The U-2s, those you got no inkling of it. If you were in London, all of a sudden you hear a big sound, an explosion, and a building's gone, and a U-2 hit it, but you wouldn't know beforehand because there was no sign of anything or anything. It just go. So that's, I was during all that time, you know, and so that covered the whole thing. And so when our tour was ended, I was sent back to the States first for some reason, and the rest of our crew was sent back later, but they sent me back first. Why, I have no idea, but the Army has strange ways of working. You don't know why, but when we came back, we went, first we went on leave, and then we went out to rest camp out to San Annam, and there you could have, they had triple chow, you know, if in a normal mess hall they have a mess for everybody, you know, and they have one, and prisoners get two because they're sentenced to hard labor, but POWs, and when you come back from combat, they get three quarters for each guy, see, so they have all the fruit and everything and want to fatten you up and get you, and so when that's over, then you're reassigned again.
Tell me what, getting back to being shot down, what did the intelligence people tell you if you had to bail out over Germany? Did they warn you about the peasants pitchforking aviators?
Well, The important thing was that you don't need any experience for that. You have to bail out, you bail out. And generally, they taught us about counting, seconds. And so you count seconds depending on how high you are, and so that you clear the aircraft, and also to get low enough so the German fighters don't come down and shoot you down, generally they teach you about counting, and but it's a traumatic thing, to get out of an airplane, and also anytime you're in that situation, you have to be aware that the airplane's probably going to explode very shortly. Usually there's gas going all over, the plane's been hit and the gas lines are hit, and there's gasoline going over, and so if you don't bail out right away, it's going to blow up on you. And so you have to get out, and then you have no idea where you're going to land. Joshua Tree landed in a tree, you have no idea where you're going to land, and then you're captured after that, and then you got to go through interrogation and everything, and then you're thrown in a prison camp, and it's just a horrendous thing. You just can't imagine that a human being could go through all that and survive,
Now, did they tell you that it's best to surrender to a uniformed soldier? Did they tell you it's best to surrender to a uniformed soldier rather than a peasant?
Oh yeah, sure. We were told, to stay away from civilians and try to get to military, and most of the flyers did that, so they were aware of most of things, and especially at the time when I was there, because and early in the war, of course, they didn't have much experience with that, but soon captured that, and but it most of the guys got rid of their 45s, and got rid of their flight jackets and stuff. Anything that identified them as a flyer, they bury it, and bury the parachute, and hopefully that they could evade. And some of them evaded for a number of days. Some of them evaded entirely, but most of them were captured. And
had you heard any rumors about civilians torturing or murdering flyers?
Yeah, they did that. And it's understandable. It's not difficult to understand. When we went to Berlin, we went every day for 30 days to Berlin, and the RAF went every night for 45 nights. So you can imagine if you're down on the ground and you're trying to survive and live and eat and work, and you got all that bombing going on all the time. Just when I can remember looking out in the back of my turret, and I could see for 100 miles nothing but airplanes coming, and look in front of me for 100 miles and nothing but airplanes going to the target. And we get to the target in Berlin, the clouds are there, but the smoke and that's coming right up through the clouds at 30,000 feet. The smoke and fires, that's how terrific the fires were. And so you get some idea of how terrific that is. But one of the things is that, you get the flyers to tell the stories, and I read a lot of these stories myself, and but there's no way that you can convey what happens to people when they're shot down and when they're in prison and they don't have enough food and it's too cold and they're abused, and there's no way that you can tell what happened, but and they understand what you're saying, but they don't feel it. You know, if you feel it yourself, it's a different thing. You know, when you feel that, it's an entirely different thing. And so that's why one of the things. You know, all these guys that were prisoners. People don't realize what they went through, even if they know what they went through. They know mechanically, but they really don't know what happened to them. But that's my story.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave.
You're welcome.
Give me your name as you'd like it to.